I want to share from my heart with the verse that was read earlier. So if you have your Bible, if you would, please grab it. If you have it electronically, that will suffice as well. Deuteronomy chapter 29 is where we're going to be. And there's one verse I want to read in our hearing, or reread in our hearing, that will set the framework for today's message. Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse number 29 is where we are. And I want to reread this verse in the New King James Version again. The word of the Lord says, the secret things, everybody say secret. The secret things belong to the Lord our God, but those things which are revealed, everybody say revealed, belong to us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law. I want to talk from this text with this simple thought in mind under the overall theme reveal. I want to preach with this thought in mind: hide and go seek. Hide and go seek. Almost 12 years ago, God blessed me with the greatest gift I had received at that point. My mind was blown. I was astounded, couldn't believe it. And if that wasn't enough, God gave me the same gift again 2 years later, then the same gift again 5 years later. Here I stand today, blessed to be the father of 3 boys, having been raised without my dad in the home. Though me and my dad both agree, both have a great relationship now, we agree that God has blessed me with a unique gift that God didn't give him, and that is the opportunity to be a physical presence in the lives of my sons. Having 3 sons has been the delight of my youth, and it allows me an opportunity to be there and be present for small moments that have big meaning, like seeing their first steps, hearing their first words, being able to teach them and being an example to them of what a man should be, and being there for the journey. I tell you, I've enjoyed the ride. Another part of being the dad of 3 boys I enjoy is that it wakes up the little boy that's still in me. We play together like 4 friends, and there are a multitude of activities we like to engage in that I believe helps to strengthen our bond and relationship. One thing we love to do is we love to fight. Now, when my sons say fight, they really mean wrestle. And usually what they do is they send the youngest down because he has the boldest spirit. And he'll come to me and he'll say, Daddy, you want to fight? And I know that means that his brothers are summoning me to the bedroom to suplex them and drop kick them all over the room for 15 to 20 minutes. We also enjoy to go out to the park when it's warm enough and sunny enough. We also enjoy video games when we're inside to compete on fighting games and racing games. But of all the things we like to do, there's one game we enjoy that we don't get to play as much, but it's awesome when we do, and that's hide and go seek. I'll never forget, a few years ago, my wife and I were younger than we are now. We only had 2 sons at the time, and in our 3-bedroom apartment, a storm knocked out the power. And so what do when there's no power and no money, and you got to figure out what to do in the meantime? When you're broke and the lights are off, you create fun out of nowhere. So we decided to relive one of our childhood favorites, hide and go seek in the dark, Hall Family Edition. Now, this was fun for me because it's always easy to find toddlers. Number 1, I know the square footage and layout of the place better than they do. Number 2, little children only gonna hide in 1 or 3 places, either in the closet or under the bed or on top of the bed under the cover with their feet hanging out. What amazes me is they only hide in 1 or 3 places and then get shocked when you find them. Oh my gosh, Daddy, how did you find me? I don't know, son. I got lucky. It's fun to try to find them, but it's even more fun to hide from them. You probably can't tell by looking at me, but I have exceptional hiding skills. I have the unique ability to conceal my 6'1" 1/2" frame in places you wouldn't believe I would be. During this particular game, I was able to hide in the laundry closet under the clean laundry that was piled up in front of the dryer. So my sons, with the lights off, are searching and looking for Daddy, and they can't find me or see me. And it really got exciting when one of my sons got so close that if he reached out his hand, he would have touched me on the nose. But for whatever reason, he couldn't see me. Maybe he couldn't see me because I was concealed in the darkness. Maybe he couldn't see me because I was concealed behind a disguise. Maybe he was so dull that his dullness concealed my presence. And even though I was close enough for him to touch, the darkness and the disguise and his dullness made it hard for him to see his daddy. I sat there behind the towels, peeking through, wondering would he finally discover that I was closer to him than he realized, but you wouldn't believe what he did next. Instead of trying to find me, he lost all hope. He began to become distraught. He began to become distressed, and he assumed that in the darkness, his daddy had abandoned him. And so instead of trying to find me, he began to cry and to weep. He was terrified because he thought he was left all alone. Until all of a sudden, what was concealed under the towels became revealed right before his face. Listen, I concealed myself, though I was present, and he began to lose it. Then I revealed myself, and tears turned to tears of joy. Some of y'all are looking at me like, Reb, that sounds just like my life. Maybe you realize by now the truth that some of us in this room are playing hide and go seek with God. Don't you realize you can't hide from God? How long is it going to take you to realize there's nowhere you can go? There's nothing you can do to hide from God. You trying to hide from God is the equivalent of my toddler son hiding on the bed under the covers with his feet hanging out in shock when I found him. Don't you know there's nowhere you can go from his presence? Don't you know you can't run from his purpose? You can't run from his call. You can't get away from his plan. You can't hide from him. Why? Because wherever you are, whoever you are, however you are, he's going to find you. But listen, don't feel bad about yourself. You're not the only one who's failed trying to hide from God. Adam tried to hide from God in the garden, but he couldn't. And since Adam couldn't hide from God in the garden, what makes you think you can hide from God in the nightclub? Since Jochebed couldn't hide Moses in a tent, what makes you think you can hide in your house? Since Gideon couldn't hide in a wine press, what makes you think you can hide in a bar? Since Saul couldn't hide behind the baggage, what makes you think you can hide at a party? Since Jonah couldn't hide out to sea, what makes you think you can hide on a college campus? Since Mary couldn't hide in the projects of Nazareth, what makes you think you can hide in the hood? Don't you know there's nowhere you can go, nowhere you can hide where God can't find you? Some of y'all like, Reb, but it's not me who's hiding from God. I'm at a place in my life where I feel like God is hiding from me. What do you do when you feel like you're seeking God, but God is hiding from you? When your situation is so dark, where it seems like he's disguised his glory to the extent that you become dull, that you can't sense his presence. Moses gives us two key terms in this one verse that lay out for us the way God moves. He talks about the secret things, and he talks about those which have been revealed. He says that these secret things belong to God, but the things which are revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law. That contrast between secret and revealed has this picture of what's concealed and then what's revealed. Because that word secret in the Hebrew, what it really means is to conceal something, to hide it away where it can't be seen by natural eye. That term reveal means to disclose or to unveil, to have a ta-da moment, so to speak. And what Moses is saying is there are some times and some things in our life that God will conceal, and there are other times or other things in our life where God will reveal it or expose it in order for us to discern it. Revelation, to reveal, is necessary in order for us to know God. Let me prove it to you. How many people in the room can think of people who know some things about you but don't really know you? They may know your name. They may know where you work. They may know where you were born. They may know somebody who know you and therefore think they know you. But you know they don't really know you because you haven't revealed who you truly are to them. There are layers between you and them. The same is true with God. He says to the goats in the end, depart from me, I never knew you. There wasn't this intimacy of knowledge between you and me. Just because you knew of me, heard about me, knew somebody who knew me, knew some stories about some things I did for other folk who knew me, don't mean I reveal myself to you. And we got to be very careful to make sure that we are not just people who know of God, but we're people who know God. We're not just people who talk about what we heard about somebody else, singing about what God has done, but we have positioned ourselves for God to reveal himself to us. If you feel like God is hiding from you and you're seeking him and you can't discover him, there are two questions I believe this verse answers for us that gives wisdom to us in that level of our experience. If you read this one verse to me, it's only two questions that should really come to mind. Let me reread it in your hearing. He says, the secret things belong to God, but those which are revealed belong to us. If I was reading this verse, there'll be only two questions I would have. The first question is, well, what are the secret things? And then the second question is then naturally what, church? What are the revealed things? If some things are secret, what are they? And if some things are revealed, what are they? So let's ask these two questions and then we'll be done for today. Here's the first question. What are the secret things of God? He says in the first clause, the secret things belong to the Lord our God. If we zoom out from Deuteronomy 29 and take into account the broader picture of the story of these people, we'll understand that from Exodus through Leviticus, through Numbers, here to Deuteronomy, there were some things God kept secret. Here's the first thing we'll note that God kept secret, his face. Everybody say his face. God kept his face a secret. Our theme verse is in Exodus 33. So let's get close to that verse and see what God has to say in Exodus 33:20. But God says, you cannot see my face, for no human being can see my face and live. Whew. His face was a secret. Now, I know some Bible scholars in the room who's saying, but Rev, I thought Jesus said in John 4 that God is spirit and that those who worship him in spirit and in truth. Touche, he did. We understand God is a spirit being. He does not have a physical body. So when you read in Exodus 33 that he hid his face, it's not a literal face. This is what theologians call an anthropomorphism. What? An anthropomorphism. What that mean, Rev? That means to ascribe physical qualities to a spiritual being in order to better understand that being. Okay, let me say it this way. God understands he's so high above us that sometimes he got to talk about himself in human language just so we can get it. He says, I don't really have a face, but I'm going to use face because you know what a face is. He says, my face cannot be seen. What is he saying? He's saying, my glory is so amazing that you can't see the most intimate parts of who I truly am in my totality and still live. So in order to keep you alive, I'll only show you parts of me part of the time for your own good. So him keeping his face a secret is a protective secret. It's a secret he keeps for our own good. Not only does he keep his face a secret, another thing we learn is that God keeps his perfect timing a secret. His face is a secret, but also his perfect time is a secret. Jesus helps us out in Matthew 24 when he says, but of that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. When Jesus talks about that day, that hour, he's talking about the moment of his return. And he says that moment has already been appointed, but it's only showing up on one person's calendar. God. For everybody else, we guessing and trying to figure out when. Meaning what? God keeps his perfect timing to himself. Now, what I've discovered in my short life is that one of the most mysterious things about God is that things that always take a long time seem to happen right on time. How does he do that? How does he take forever and a day and then move right in the nick of time? That's the mystery of God, because he keeps his perfect timing a secret. Now, in order for us to appreciate this, we must understand that God relates to time in a different way than we do. Meaning what? I'm inside of time, but time is inside of God. Okay? God is outside of time, but time is outside of me. All right, let me say it this way. We are at Mount Pleasant, the physical address on Squirrel Hill. We're inside the building, but the building is inside Herndon, Virginia. We live in time, but time lives in God. That's why he can be the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. That's why he can be in your past, present, and future at the same time without having to stretch. Okay, a lot of us wish we knew the exact time God was going to do some things we want him to do, but I'm going to show you why that's not really what you want to know. What if you were the only human being on earth that God told the exact day he was going to end the earth? And what if you knew that was today? You think you'd be sitting in this church quiet, listening to a boy from Georgia go on and on? If you were the only human being on earth who knew when God was going to end it all and he told you it was going to be today, you would be in a psych ward or an insane asylum somewhere losing your mind because the anxiety and pressure of knowing too much about what God is doing would stress you out in your finite mind. This is a protective secret. His perfect timing is something he keeps secret because we can't handle it, because if we knew it, it'll stress us out. He hides his face. He hides his perfect timing. Here's another thing he keeps secret, his whole plan. He keeps his whole plan a secret. There's one thing we pray that I don't really think we want the Lord to answer. Because if he really answered it, it's something we couldn't handle. Lord, show me your plan for my life. If we really had the Lord answer that prayer, it would completely overwhelm us. Here's one reason why he keeps his whole plan a secret. Because his whole plan always includes both good and evil. He keeps his whole plan secret because his plan is not whole without good and evil. And what he knows is we cannot handle how he even uses evil for our good. Okay, this is a secret God tried to keep from the beginning, but Satan slid it in and tricked us into falling for it. If you recall in Genesis chapter 2, there were two trees in the middle of the garden. God said from one of them, you can't eat. From the tree of life, eat it, because I want you to live forever. But from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, don't eat it, because as soon as you eat it, you'll surely die. Meaning what? The knowledge that both good and evil are present is something that's bigger than the human psyche can understand. He tried to keep it a secret, then Satan slithered in and said, no, God is lying to you. He's really envious because he knows that if you really know everything he knows, you'll be just like him. And so when Eve took to eat, Adam took to eat, and their eyes were open, stress entered the cosmos with sickness and with death. Why? Because even the knowledge of good and evil is too wonderful for us to understand. Come in, Paul, help me. I'm out here on the island. Paul says in Romans 8:28 in the New American Standard Bible, and we know that God causes all things to work together for the good of them who love the Lord and who are called. You missed it. Let me run that back. He didn't say, for we know that all things are good. He said, we know that God causes all things. What is all? Good and bad, evil and right, wrong and right. He causes all things to work out for the good. See, the reason we don't really want to know God's whole plan is because his plan is not whole without good and evil. And a lot of times as disciples, this frustrates us, and we find ourselves in good company with Peter. In Matthew 16, Jesus told the disciples, I got to go be crucified. Peter looked at him and said, nah, bro, I'm telling you, if you go down, bro, I'm throwing hands. Nah, they not going to lay a hand on you. We know as soon as they try to come arrest Jesus, Peter pulled out his switchblade, cut a man's ear off. He's like, I'm about that life, Jesus. In Matthew 16, Jesus turned back to Peter and said, get behind me, Satan. Because you don't understand how the plan of God includes good and evil. And then Jesus let evil nail him to a cross. Why, Jesus, would you allow evil to happen, to nail you to a cross? Why, Jesus, would you allow such a bad thing, such an unjust thing to happen, to take your life? Because Jesus knew something we don't know, and that is this. Our salvation is in God's secrets. There's some parts of his plan I just can't understand, because he has a way of even letting the bad that happened to me work out to good for me. Is there anybody who can testify, God, that's why I give you praise? Not because everything that happens to me is good, but because you are so good that nothing that happens to me can stop what you're doing for me. You ought to give God a hand clap of praise and celebrate the fact that he has a way of working all that thing out for you. He says the secret things belong to God. What secret things? His face, his perfect timing, his whole plan are the secret things. But then Moses continues and says, but those things which are revealed belong to us. So the question then is, well, what is revealed? Okay. When we zoom out from Deuteronomy and we look at Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, we discover that God revealed some things to him and them, even though he kept some things secret. Here's the first thing God revealed: his presence. What you mean, Rev? Let me say it this way. Even though God hides his face, he reveals his presence. Let's go back to Exodus 33, verse number 14. Listen to what he says. God said, my presence shall go with you, and I'll give you rest. God reveals his presence for the same reason he hides his face, because he loves us. In other words, God knows we cannot live if we see his face, and he also knows we cannot live without his presence. So he says, even though I'm going to hide my face, I'm going to still give you my presence. Okay. All right. When we talk about the presence of God, it is a truth that he's already everywhere present. The theological term for it is omnipresence. It means God is already everywhere. So when we ask the Lord, Lord, show me your presence, we're not saying, Lord, I need you to show up in spaces where you're not. What we're saying is, Lord, I need you to show me how you're already somewhere I didn't see you. Because the darkness and the disguise and my dullness makes it hard to see you in certain places. Hear me, church. God is not just God at Mount Pleasant Baptist Church in Herndon, Virginia. After Pastor Donaldson gives the benediction and we leave this residence, this place, this address, we don't leave God here. And then he's sitting and waiting on us Monday and Tuesday like, man, I can't wait for Sunday for them to come back so I can keep being Lord. You understand, he has sovereignty beyond Squirrel Hill. You understand, he's God everywhere. He's not just present at church, he's present at your school too. He's not just present at church, he's present in your house too. He's not just present at church, he's in the nightclub too. He's not just present in America, he's all over the cosmos. He's everywhere already. We just have to ask him, Lord, reveal your presence. He revealed his presence to his people. And it was so beautiful how he did it. I want you to hear Exodus chapter 40, verse 36 through 38, how the presence of God led the people of God. Exodus 40, verse 36, throughout all their journeys, whenever the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle, the sons of Israel would set out. But if the cloud was not taken up, then they did not set out until the day when it was taken up. Verse 38, for throughout all their journeys, the cloud of the Lord was on the tabernacle by day, there was fire in it by night, and the sight of it was in front of all the house of Israel. What just happened, Rev? See, these people were delivered from Egypt, walking through a wilderness toward the promised land. As they're delivered from Egypt, walking through a wilderness to the promised land, they didn't have an iPhone and a map and a GPS system. All they had was a cloud before them by day and fire by night. And that represented the presence of God. So whenever the cloud stopped, they would stop, build their tents, camp out there. And they would stay in that camp until the cloud moved. When the cloud lifted up, they would all get up, build their tents, put them on their shoulders, and carry their tents until the cloud stopped again. Because they understood what Ludacris understood theologically. When I move, you move. Just like that. If there's anything you're praying for, whatever you're praying for, I know you don't know me like that, but if I can butt in on your prayer list real quick, and if I could leapfrog the money you need, if I can jump over the car you asking for, if I could get around the house you begging God for, if I could jump across the clothes that you're begging the Lord for, on the top of your list, can I suggest to you that if there's anything we're praying for, we ought to be praying for his presence? God, I don't need more money, I need your presence. I don't need a bigger house, I need your presence. I don't need a nicer car, I need your presence. Why? Because I want to be wherever you are. When are we going to finally mature and grow up and realize that just because I got frustration in a place don't mean I should leave that place. Just because I got a headache in a place don't mean God is done working in that place. Just because I don't see my way through where I am don't mean I should leave where I am. If the cloud is still there, then by God, I'm not going to move till God moves. Where he stays, I'll stay. Where he moves, I'll move just like. God, reveal your presence to me. Particularly to our young adults. Hear me, young adults. This is very important. You're at a crucial time in your life where decisions have to be made and repercussions will be felt. May I suggest to you that in everything else you do to determine the decisions you're going to make, would you please just seek God's presence in it all? Just ask the Lord, Lord, give me your presence. Lead me and guide me. Don't lead me to my own faculties. Don't let what my homeboys and what my homegirls think be the main thing that pushes how I decide what I'm going to do. Don't let how I feel in the moment make me quit too soon. Help me to see where you are and stay where you told me to be and move when you told me to move. He hides his face, but he reveals his presence. But then he hides his perfect timing, but he reveals his imminent timing. Imminent timing means it's about to happen. I just don't know when. See, God won't tell you exactly when he's going to do something. He'll just give you signs so you'll start getting ready before it happens. A lot of us get mad at God about this, if we can be honest. And I think we should be honest. We get mad at God because he won't tell us when he's going to do something we ask him to do. And what we think is, God, I wouldn't be mad if you just told me when the $1 million was going to be directly deposited into my account. But needing to know when God is going to do everything is not driving you crazy. That just makes you impatient. If you knew exactly when God was going to do everything God is going to do, that would make you crazy and you would be an impatient. God, I don't need to know exactly when you're going to do it. Just don't let me get caught off guard. Give me some signs when you're about to move so the faith in me can get me ready before you do what I'm expecting you to do. God says, I'm not going to tell you when. I'm going to just tell you about when. Because if I tell you about when, that's going to prove if you really trust me or not. Okay. This whole conversation about timing is amazing with the story in Deuteronomy, because remember, they're leaving Egypt, walking through the wilderness to the promised land. It's almost 2.5 million people. Some people suggest Moses is leading them, an 80-year-old man, through the wilderness. And Deuteronomy chapter 1 verse 2 says that this journey should have taken 11 days. 11 days. Meaning, no more than 2 weeks. A couple pit stops. Right? A couple overnight stays. No more than 2 weeks it should have taken for them to leave Egypt, walk through the wilderness, and get to the promised land. But in our chapter, Deuteronomy 29, verse number 5, Moses says, I've been leading you in this wilderness 40 years. Hold on, God. Hold on. How in the world did a trip that was supposed to take 2 weeks tops end up taking 40 years? Then in Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 2, he says, you've been circling this mountain long enough, go north. Okay, let's back that up. We leave Egypt, It's supposed to take us 2 weeks to get where we're going. We got a GPS system, a cloud by day, fire by night leading us. A trip that's supposed to take 2 weeks ends up taking 40 years because we've been walking around the same mountain for 40 years, following the cloud around the same mountain for 4 decades, just so you can tell us in Deuteronomy chapter 2, okay, long enough. God, I don't understand your timing. Don't you realize how much time it is between 2 weeks and 40 years? You added an extra 39 years and 50 weeks? And then all of a sudden you just gonna say, okay, long enough. Lord, why would you let a trip that was supposed to take 2 weeks stretch out to 40 years? Why would you keep me going around and around in the same environment before you tell me, okay, long enough? Because the reason God has to do this is because he has to let faithlessness die and let faithfulness be reborn. He said, listen, because y'all don't want to believe me in Numbers 13 and 14, I'm going to let y'all do something. I'm going to let y'all walk around in the same mountain for 40 years until all the faithless folk die and then the faithful folk are reborn. You trying to figure out why God's timing isn't making sense with your schedule, why what should have took 2 weeks is taking 40 years? Is it possible that the Lord has you walking around and around and around and around because he's waiting on you to grow up by now? He's waiting on you to mature by now. He's waiting on faithlessness to die and faithfulness to be reborn. Is there anybody who can testify, oh, well, now it makes sense? Because I told God, if you give it to me, I'm going to grow up. He said, no, if you grow up, I'll give it to you. Is there anybody grateful for the fact that God is still sovereign even when it takes a long time? I used to believe that my mama and God were friends against me and my sisters. My mama used to do this thing where, particularly in the summertime when we had to stay home all day, she would get us up in the morning and give us a list of chores. Darrell, you do this. Sister 1, Sister 2, Sister 3, you do this. And y'all make sure it's done before I get back. Okay, cool. She would leave. Now, we didn't know exactly what time she was going to return. But we had spirits of discernment to read when the seasons changed. We knew about what time she got off and about how long it took to drive from work to home. And so you know what we would do. We wouldn't get on it right in the top of the morning. We would procrastinate and lollygag and have fun and waste time. And then right before we thought it was about that time she might possibly show up, we would all of a sudden get up and start cleaning up and doing what we were supposed to do. She opened the door, I'm wiping the table. Hey, Mama, how you doing, Mama? House badly clean, shoes under the couch, stuff under the bed, stuff and stuff in the closet. Why? Because I wasted so much time that she gave me to do what she asked me to do, that by the time she began to return, I tried to rush and do what she told me to do earlier this morning. Come here, how many people has God given you something to do? You know his will for your life. You just don't like his will for your life. You know what he's asking you to do today. You just don't want to do it. He's telling, listen, you got a little bit of time to get this done before I return and hold you accountable for what I expected you to do. And I know you don't like it. I know you think it's small and inconsequential. I know you think your purpose is insignificant. But hear me, don't worry about its impact. Just worry about your obedience. Because if you do what I ask you to do, I'll always make sure that what I ask you to do will have a bigger impact than you ever could have known. Because when I put my extra on your ordinary, I can always do something extraordinary with your life. Is there anybody who can testify, okay, God, I'm going to stop wasting time and do what you call me to do? Some things he keeps secret. There's some things he reveals. He hides his face, but he reveals his presence. He hides his perfect timing, but he reveals his imminent time. And I'm done. He hides his whole will, whole plan, but he reveals his current plan. But the secret things belong to God, but the things which are revealed belong to us and to our children forever that we may do all the words of this law. See, there was an expectation in this verse that one generation would teach the next generation what God had revealed. We're almost done with Deuteronomy, at the end of Deuteronomy and at the end of Moses' life. The ending of Deuteronomy and Moses' life both represent the same thing. That word is in this verse, law. Everybody say law. Now, when we think law, don't think 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments is just the first 10. It's really almost 600 laws in the Old Testament, in the first 5 books of the Bible, that impacted every area of Israelite life. What God was trying to show his people is this: I'm not just God when you come to the temple and offer a sacrifice, but I have expectations of you on a regular day, during a regular week, to do what pleases me. See, we get mad at God because he won't show us his whole plan, and he says, I'm going to just show you my current plan. Here's my current plan for you. Today, glorify me. That's it. We say, okay, God, I'm going to do what you want to do if you just show me what you're going to do next. He said, don't worry about what I'm going to do next. All you need to worry about is what I need you to do now. Stop holding grudges. Stop lying on folk. Stop trying to get revenge. Show love. Show mercy. Show compassion for your neighbor. Stop asking me what I'm going to do next. Let's just worry about what I need you to do now. Do whatever right now you think would bring me the most pleasure and glory. For some of us, that's a hard way to live. But what it requires to live that way from day to day, glorifying God, is a simple word: trust. Trust. Meaning, Lord, I'm going to trust you with what's next, and I'm going to just do what you gave me to do now. I'm not going to stress over what I want. I'm going to stress over what I have, and I'm going to try to be faithful today to do what you called me to do today. Not just Sunday when I'm in the congregation, but Tuesday when I'm home by myself. Wednesday on my lunch break. Friday in my first period class. Wherever I find myself, I understand that you want me to keep your law, meaning you want me to do in that moment whatever will bring you the most glory. That's a moment of stress for us, because a lot of us are so overwhelmed with our now that we don't figure out, how am I going to get out of my now to my next? And God is saying, listen, don't worry about your next. I got your next. And I got you. Just right now, do what I asked you to do. I told you my mom and God must be friends, because she would do something like this too. We were younger, we would get in the car and she would just start driving. All right? Me and my sister's in the back seat. She just started driving. And she had the audacity to get in her car with her kids and start driving without telling us where we were going first. How dare she? Who she thinks she is? So you can imagine me being an inquisitive boy that I was. Mama, where are we going? In classic black mama fashion. With me. So I thought I was so smart, I'd try to figure out and predict, based upon the current route, what is the likelihood of the destination. And so I'll try to put in my mind where I think we're going, and then when we get to the building and pass by it, I'm like, Mama, where we going? With me. Until finally we would arrive at a destination that I couldn't have foreseen in a million years. And she would have more fun planned for us than I could have predicted on my own. And what I had to realize is I got to trust my mama for a multitude of reasons. Number one, I wouldn't have life if she didn't give me life. Number two, she knows how to drive this car. I don't. I'm a backseat driver. Number three, she's never taken me anywhere that ultimately wasn't for my good, even if it was to the doctor to get shots to keep me from getting sick. In other words, I came all the way to Herndon, Virginia to tell somebody that you keep asking God, God, where am I going? God, when are you going to do it? God, how am I going to get there? God, what's next? And all his simple response is to you is the same thing my mama used to say to me. With me. Stop stressing out. You with me. Stop losing sleep. You and me. You don't need to know the answer. You got me. You don't need to know what's next. You know me. You don't need to know what's around the corner. You know me. Is there anybody who can testify? As long as I got the me, I don't need to stress about what's next. You ought to give God praise for the fact that he's got the whole world in this. I'm done. I love being a dad. I like playing games with my sons, hide and go seek particularly. But when we're tired and frustrated from playing games, we finally sit down to watch movies. That's something we do almost weekly. And I thank God that last fall, he moved in a miraculous, most powerful way. Whew. God, I still thank you for this manifestation of magnificent glory. When Disney Plus came out, whew, I say yes to your will, Lord. Yes to your way. Got that annual subscription, so now we can watch whatever Disney movie, Marvel movie we want when we want. One of my favorite movies, not one of my favorite movie of all time, is Lion King. The animated one. The 1994 Lion King. If we had enough time, I could quote the movie almost from beginning to end, but we don't. So let's see if we can cut to the chase. If you remember when Rafiki came to retrieve Simba from a distant land, and Simba was reminded of his true identity and that it was his rightful place to be king, he ran across this plain and all the way back to the edges of the Pride Lands. When he arrived, it was a barren wasteland by now. No rain, no greenery, no animals. Nala and Timon and Pumbaa came up behind him and they looked and said, ugh, what is this place? Simba said, Timon is my home. Timon said, talk about a fixer-upper. So they noticed there were a bunch of hyenas that were prowling around, and they tried to figure out strategically, how can we get behind the hyenas back up to the Pride Rock? And so then Pumbaa asked the question, how can we distract the hyenas? And then Simba said, with live bait. He looked at Pumbaa. Pumbaa's like, come on. He was like, go ahead. Pumbaa put on the, if you remember, he had on a little skirt and he was dancing. Timon was, and Pumbaa had an apple in his mouth. They distract the hyenas, and then Simba creeps in and Nala back up the Pride Rock. When Simba came down Pride Rock, his mother, Sarabi, had just been knocked to the ground by the devil, Scar. She's been knocked down, almost defeated, and when she looked up, she saw an apocalypse. Apocalypse means a revelation. Something was revealed to her. When she looked up, she saw an apocalypse, and she said, Mufasa? The devil, Scar, saw him too and said, no, Mufasa, it can't be your dad. And then Simba looked his mom in the eye and said, no, Mom, it's me. And then she said, Simba? And then all of a sudden, the energy in Pride Rock changed because she just saw an apocalypse. A king she thought was dead has now been resurrected. She saw a revelation. Right at the end of the story, a revelation gave her insight into a resurrected king she thought was dead, and by his presence she knew she already had the victory. Help me out, John. I'm out here on the island with you on Patmos, Revelation chapter 1. Here is the revelation, the apocalypse of Jesus Christ. The last book of the Bible, the ending scene of the story reminds us of a king, not Simba, but the Savior, who you thought was dead but was resurrected. And when we see him sitting on his throne, it is an apocalypse. If you remember, she was defeated. The devil, Scar, had knocked her to the ground. She's laying on the ground, weak exasperated, exhausted. She don't have the strength to fight anymore. All this time has passed by and things have just gotten worse. Darkness is all around her. The land is now barren. There are no more animals and there's nothing she can do to deliver herself. But then when she gets a revelation of a king that she thought was dead but is still alive, she got up and started stretching. She popped her neck. She called the other lionesses. She said, oh, we about that life. And all of a sudden, she got a new attitude. Now, why would she get a new attitude? The trees didn't start growing back. Why would she get a new attitude? The sun hadn't started shining. Why would she get a new attitude? The animals hadn't returned. Nothing in her circumstance changed. But when she saw her king, she knew she had the VICTORY. Is there anybody who can testify? I got a new attitude. I don't need my circumstance to change. I don't need it to get better. I don't need it to get easier. I just need a revelation of my king. And I know I got the victory. Is there anybody who can testify? Thank you, Lord, that I already got the victory. The secret things belong to God. But those things which are revealed belong to us forever. If you're searching for God, hear me. He reveals himself best through the gospel of Jesus Christ. You can't find God without a revelation. If he don't reveal it to you, you won't see him. You offend an omnipotent, omnipresent, all-knowing, omniscient God. You offend an omniscient God when you try to find him through knowledge. You can have all the knowledge in the world and still not know God. You offend a holy God when you try to find him through religion. He don't need you to keep rules to earn his affection and love. The only way for God to truly reveal himself is for us to look at what he's already done in the gospel. The good news about his son, Jesus Christ. And when we respond by faith to that revelation, he gives us the grace to know him in a way that revolutionizes our eternal life. If you don't know the Lord Jesus as your personal Savior today, I extend him to you. I want to encourage you, invite you to make a decision to accept Christ. Even beyond that, if you're saved, you don't have a church home. You've been playing hide and go seek with churches. Like, when I'm going to find a good church finally? Particularly to all the first-time guests and visitors, I want to encourage you. Consider Mount Pleasant here in Herndon. This great pastor, Dr. Donaldson. These great people. Consider if this might not be the home God has for you spiritually, so he can continue to reveal his wisdom to you through the word that's preached across this pulpit and the fellowship that's felt among these saints.